This is happiness, to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Mood Prep. My name is Dave Nixon, and if you guys listened to yesterday's podcast, I actually didn't realize until later on that I actually had like a start of one of the previous attempts of me doing the podcast. At the start, it's quite funny. I played it back just before as I was sorting things out, and I was like, yeah, you can stay there. So what? Anyway, but it's my human error, one of my human errors that I make every single day, every single week. For your delightful ears. Either way, the book, again, that I was referencing yesterday was A Fighter's Heart by Sam Sheridan, which I read many years ago, but still parts of it that still sit with me today. So one of the things I want to talk about, or that I am going to talk about today is it goes with the topic of how to be virtuous. Now, the idea of me telling you how to be virtuous is like virtue signaling in itself. So bear with me, because I'm not trying to tell you how to act. I'm talking about the act of being virtuous in itself, in and of itself, especially because to each person that kind of looks a little bit different, even though it ends up being the same kind of result. Now, I said the act of being virtuous. If you actually, look at the definition of virtue, it means behavior showing high moral standard. So it's not so much an act in the same way we act out a persona, as opposed to behaviors that we have in order to respond to the world and reality around us. And so where this comes down to is looking at what the keywords in that sentence, I think, are, besides behavior, right, would be moral standard, especially high moral standard, which already starts to build up this hierarchy of values and a hierarchy of morals, and then keeping that as the average and the standard. And this is what's really interesting, because a lot of the time, I talk to somebody about healthy eating. It's like, we've got to stop calling it healthy food and healthy eating, because it presupposes it's only for healthy people. Right, there's a hierarchy within the food group there, and if somebody doesn't see themselves as healthy being the standard, because healthy people just call it food, and healthy people just call it eating, they don't call it a diet, they don't call it that they're on a health kick, they don't do that sort of stuff, because it's the standard of how they see things. It's the same when it comes to money, it's the same when it comes to relationships, it's the same when it comes to exercise. People just see that as the standard, and that's why they keep it up. And this is where you see people go, I've been really good this week when it comes to nutrition, and it's like, it tells me that your standard is lower than where you're currently at, which means you will balance yourself out at some point. And this is why linguistics and communications are so crucial. So really interesting stuff within that anyway. So let's dig a bit deeper now. Where this came out, the whole virtue stuff, I'm currently reading a book called Understanding the Enneagram by Don Richard Riso and Russ Hudson. They also wrote Personality Types, which I haven't read yet, but I have read the Wisdom of the Enneagram, which is a great book, and Mr. Sheridan's currently reading that, mate. I need that back soon. Either way, the Mr. Riso and Mr. Hudson, if you have done the Enneagram, it's called the Raheti test, R-H-E-T-I, which is a recent Hudson Enneagram type indicator. So these are the guys that have actually created the test online. If you want the link there, make sure you jump into the Mood Prep Online group. Just Facebook Mood Prep Online. It'll pop up. I'll add you, and then I'll also refresh it there. If you guys want it, just ask for the link to the test, and I'll post it there. Either way, I came across something pretty interesting in this book that I thought I would like to share with you guys. And it's pretty early on. It's on page 36, and it's the virtues, passions, holy ideas, and fixations. And it's because each Enneagram type, now the Enneagrams, like, it unfolds into like 54 variants, which then unfolds into 9 levels of 54 variants. It's quite very much in depth, more than we could, it's not just the 4-disc profiling, not to put, that down, so to speak. It's just different to that. But I want to read this passage, and then I want to talk a bit further about it, and let's see where we can go. Cool? Like, you're going to answer. Yes, Dave. Okay, go. Anyway, right. The virtues describe the expansive, non-dual qualities of essence experienced in a direct, felt way by a person abiding in their true nature. Right. So to put that down, it means that the non-dual qualities of essence experienced in a direct, felt way by a person abiding in their true nature. So what that means is kind of what I said earlier. It's like we all get to, and I'll expand on essence in a minute, but we all get to that level of essence in a different format, in a different way, based on the fact of our personality and our childhood patterns. They've all sort of created different ways that we see the world, and when we can kind of learn how to remove those, we can and learn to move into more virtuous moral ideas and behaviors, of course. Then, of course, what will then happen is that we're able to move further into essence and move into our more true nature. So we're not reacting to things, we're learning how to respond to reality, which is different. It goes on to say, the virtues are the natural expression of the awakened heart. We do not try to force ourselves to be virtuous. This is the important part. I'll say it again. We do not try to force ourselves to be virtuous. Rather, as we relax and become more present and awake, seeing through the fear and desire of the ego self, these qualities naturally manifest themselves in the human soul. And so this is where so often we have to understand that it's not about getting better. It's not about adding things. It's not about finding a better strategy necessarily. It's getting out of it's unblocking the shit that's blocking our heart, right? And this is the analogy that I continually give. It's like a river, and people are trying to speed the river up. You just got to go to where the rocks are blocking the river, and you got to remove those rocks. But we have to learn where those rocks are. And so this is why I continually say that as you continue to excavate your own mind and go down this way and work with people that have, that do this for a profession and guide people and coach and mentor or whatever it may be, I've shared mine with you in the past, the people that have helped me, but in saying that, it allows us to move further down this understanding of our true essence. Now, essence is what is left when you remove ego. And it's not to say ego is bad necessarily, and it's not to say that the goal is to have zero ego, because then you won't be able to relate with almost anyone. It's just it's too complex to say that. It's like saying cutting carbs. It's just too fucking complex to do that sort of process. So understanding this whole thing, it's like going and understanding that the further that we move into our essence, who our true nature is, without having this concern of judgment, this concern of expectations, this concern of upholding an identity that we hold on to so much, when we can remove those things and unblock that, right, then what happens is that our true essence and who we are emerges. And to clarify, when I say essence, I mean who you are with, like, unfiltered. Not as in like you can swear and do all that sort of stuff. Like, that's beside the point. What I'm saying is that you are unfiltered from all of the ego traps that we have built to try and understand the world and keep particular people happy. Sometimes that's us. More often than not, it's the people around us or the people that represent as, authority figures in our life, which could be a nurturing person or a more an authoritative individual. And so by really truly understanding this is how we can wake up to ourselves and start to see when we're responding in particular ways, because that's the reality of it, is that we cannot control the world, right? Get it? We cannot. Can you imagine there is no essence in controlling things outside of you? That is all ego. There is no essence in that. The essence is only choosing how we respond. And even in that, there's ego, of course, but we get to remove all of these fake ideas or even fake ideals that we have built to try and protect us from things that are no longer occurring. And so once we're able to identify these for what they are and what they have been a representation for in our life, then we can truly move forward and truly give ourselves permission to show up in life as who we are, rather than showing up in life as who we think people want us to be. And there's a big difference between those two things, right? And so one of the things, and it's kind of been maybe a bit of a theme actually, if this last week, maybe there's something in that for me, but about understanding that it takes work to get to this level. And there's a lot of painful work. Look, the easiest way to explain it is like going through uni or exercise or becoming an athlete or something. Like, you're going to go through discomfort. That's what you sign up for. And when it comes down to understanding ourselves and the development thereof, or the developmental work that we can go through and we choose to go through, you're just going to go through really challenging times as you peel away the bullshit that's not you. And you let go of these, people call them limiting beliefs. It's just let go of the belief in the beliefs that you hold, that are holding you back. You're only holding them because they're holding you. And I'll leave it on this. And it's old mate Mr. Jung, Carl Jung, who said, do people have ideas, or do ideas have people? And a lot of the time we're walking around and it's our beliefs and our ideas that have us. Same with our values. Cool. Team, thank you very much for tuning in. If you found this podcast beneficial, then it would mean the world to me if you would pass it on to someone else that you think would also find it beneficial. If you haven't already and you listen to the podcast, jump on Facebook, jump on Mood Prep Online, and continue the conversation. I'd love to hear the things that you find interesting and the questions that you have. Otherwise, if you haven't already, I've got 2 more seminars for the back end of this year. One's called Connected Coaching, and the other one's called The Next Level. After this, there's no more for the remainder of the year, and I'm changing them up for next year. So these are the last ones here, and then it's all going to change. I really recommend getting in for these ones. You can find out more details on my website, davenixon.com.au. You'll find under /seminars. Otherwise, team, that's it. I'm out. I'm gonna call it there. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until tomorrow, peace and pizza. Kick today in the dick. Slay the dragon. I'll see you soon.
To be everything at once, be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.